Welcome back to Hello PEI. Today we're diving into someone and something, fundamentally PEI.
It really is hard to separate them from the island, isn't it?
Totally. And we want to give a big thank you to Mike Montague of Remax Charlottetown. The research he provided really set us up for a great deep dive today.
Absolutely. It's kind of amazing how one author and her, fiery red-headed creation have captured hearts for, over a century now?
And not just captured hearts, but really shaped how the world sees Prince Edward Island.
Exactly. We are, of course, talking about the one, the only, Lucy Maud Montgomery, and the just enduring magic of Anne of Green Gables.
Okay, so let's start with Lucy Maud herself, L.M. Montgomery. Born right here, New London, PEI, November 30th, 1874.
Yeah, think about that time. Late 1800s, it's a different world.
Definitely. And her early life wasn't exactly easy, was it?
No, not at all. Her mother died really young, tragically, from tuberculosis when Maud was just under 2 years old, 21 months. And then her father, Hugh John Montgomery, he left her with her maternal grandparents in Cavendish. He actually moved out west to Saskatchewan.
So she was raised by her grandparents, Alexander and Lucy McNeil.
Right. And growing up in Cavendish, that close-knit, rural island life, that definitely became the backdrop, the sort of raw material for so much of her writing later on.
And thinking about that era, the late 1800s, early 1900s, a woman wanting to be a published author, wanting to go to college, that wasn't exactly encouraged, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Wow.
Societal norms were, quite different. Women were generally expected to focus on the home, marriage, family. Pursuing higher education, let alone a writing career, was seen as, pretty unconventional, maybe even a bit strange.
But she was determined.
Incredibly so. I mean, what's really striking is that between 1897 and 1908, that's the year Anne of Green Gables came out, she'd already written and published over 100 short stories.
100?
Yeah. And she was earning her own income from it. That kind of drive and that time period is just remarkable.
And then Anne was published in 1908. And it wasn't like a slow build-up. It was, bam, instant success.
Pretty much. It just took off. By November 1909, so just over a year later, it had already gone through 6 printings.
That's huge for back then.
It really was.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, how the press reacted differently. The Canadian press was, quite rightly, very proud. They highlighted her PEI roots, this charming sort of old-fashioned place.
Makes sense, homegrown talent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But some of the American press had a slightly different take. Almost condescending, maybe.
How so?
Well, there was this idea that Canada was somehow, backward or rustic, and that a sweet story like Anne could only come from a place like that. A Boston newspaper in 1911 even called her a previously unknown writer from a remote and unassertive speck on the map.
Wow, a speck on the map, that's something.
Right. It really shows you how perspectives and maybe biases frame the same success story very differently.
It does. Now, outside of her writing, her personal life wasn't simple either. She got married later after her grandmother passed away.
Yes. In 1911, she married Ewan MacDonald, who was a Presbyterian minister, and they moved away from PEI to Ontario.
And she kept writing there.
Oh, yes. Her next 11 books were actually written in the Leasdale manse, where they lived. She had 3 sons, although very sadly, one was still born. And, given the times, there was immense pressure on her to make the marriage work, to present that stable family front.
And beneath the surface, she dealt with some significant personal struggles, too.
Yes, it's become clearer over time that she battled depression throughout much of her life. It wasn't something openly discussed back then, of course.
No, definitely not.
And you wonder how much that internal struggle maybe fueled the emotional depth in her characters, even Anne.
That's an interesting thought. And then there were the issues with her publisher. That sounds like a nightmare.
It really does. Bitter lawsuits with L.C. Page that dragged on for 11 years, from 1917 to 1928.
11 years? What was that about? Royalties?
Yeah, essentially. She felt she was getting significantly less than she was owed, which seems pretty clear she was. He apparently tried to pressure her, withholding royalties, even selling rights he didn't actually own when she tried to move publishers.
Ugh, awful. Did she win in the end?
She did, thankfully. But imagine the stress and the energy drain for all those years while trying to be creative.
Seriously. And it seems her Hollywood experience wasn't much better, at least early on.
No. She was apparently quite unhappy with the first couple of Anne movies, the silent one in 1919 and then one in 1934. She had zero creative control.
And the money went to the publisher she was fighting with.
Exactly. The royalties went to Page. Plus, she just felt the actresses didn't capture Anne. Her Anne.
You create this incredibly beloved character, and then you don't even like how she's portrayed on screen. Frustrating.
Very. And it's interesting, around 1920, she actually sort of stopped writing about Anne for a while.
Really? She got tired of her.
Seems like it. Maybe felt a bit constrained by the character. She wanted to focus on other stories, other characters.
But she did come back to Anne eventually.
She did, yeah. Later in life, after they moved again to Swansea, Ontario, she published Anne of Windy Poplars in 1936 and Anne of Ingleside in 1939. So Avonlea called her back in the end.
It seems it did, and she did receive significant recognition during her lifetime.
Yes, definitely. In 1935, she was named an Officer of the Order of the British Empire, an OBE. That's a major honor.
It certainly is.
She passed away in Toronto in 1942, but she's buried right here in Cavendish, PEI, back home.
Full circle.
Mm-hmm. And it's quite poignant that her granddaughter revealed years later, in 2008, that the family believes her death was likely due to a drug overdose related to a lifelong struggle with depression.
That adds such a layer of sadness to her story. And the thing, after writing over 20 books, creating this phenomenon, she apparently felt she never wrote her great book.
It's hard to fathom, isn't it, given the impact she had? I mean, Mark Twain himself.
Oh, yeah. What did Twain say?
He apparently called her Anne, the dearest and most moving and delightful child since the immortal Alice.
Wow. For Mark Twain. That's about as high praise as you can get.
Right. So maybe she achieved greatness even if she couldn't see it herself.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about Anne herself, Anne of Green Gables, the story, for anyone who somehow doesn't know.
Yes. It's about Anne Shirley, this incredibly bright, imaginative orphan girl who ends up, kind of by mistake, with Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert.
Siblings living on their farm, Green Gables, in the fictional village of Avonlea. They were expecting a boy to help out, right?
Exactly. And instead, they get Anne. And that setting, Avonlea, Green Gables. It wasn't just pulled out of thin air.
No, it was inspired by real places here.
Very much so. Green Gables itself was based on the farmhouse owned by her cousins, the McNeil family. Montgomery grew up nearby, knew the farm well. The oldest part of that house actually dates back to the 1830s.
So even though she never lived in that specific house?
No, but it was clearly a huge source of inspiration. It fueled her imagination for Avonlea.
And now that house is Green Gables. It's a heritage site.
It is. It's run by Parks Canada, and it's wonderful. You can go, you can tour the house, see the exhibits, walk the grounds, Haunted Wood, Lover's Lane.
It feels like stepping into the book.
It really, really does.
Wow.
And they've set up the rooms based on the descriptions.
Like what? What are some highlights if you visit?
Well, there's the parlor, very formal, only for important guests like the minister. Then the kitchen, which feels like the heart of the home, with the old wood stove. You see Matthew's room downstairs.
Because of his heart condition in the book?
Right. And then, of course, Anne's famous East Gable room. You can almost picture her looking out the window, dreaming of puffed sleeves and wondering about the lake of shining waters.
That puffed sleeves.
Yeah.
Essential.
Absolutely. And Marilla's room, too. Very simple, very practical, just like her. It really brings the characters to life. And hey, if you can't make it here in person, they have a pretty great virtual tour online, too.
That's good to know. A virtual trip to Green Gables. And didn't you mention something about Gilbert Blythe having a real-life inspiration, too?
Yes. The story goes that he was inspired, at least in part, by a young man Montgomery knew, perhaps her first love, who sadly died young. It adds a certain depth, maybe, to Anne and Gilbert's relationship in the books.
It really does. And it wasn't just the one book, of course. It's a whole series.
8 novels in total, following Anne all the way through her life. Education, marriage, motherhood.
And people are still just as passionate about these books today. You see it online all the time.
Oh, definitely. There's a whole Reddit community, Anne of Green Gables. It's really active.
What kind of stuff did they talk about?
Everything. Favorite adaptations, the Kevin Sullivan movies from the 80s are hugely popular, of course. But also the anime versions, there's an older one and newer ones, too. People discuss audiobooks, interpretations of characters, like, was Gilbert actually kind of a creep at first?
Uh-huh.
Debates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And manga versions, webtoons.
Mm-hmm.
It's global. People share anisms, those little phrases from the books that have become part of how they talk. They look for specific editions to complete their collections.
It's a whole world.
It really is. They even talk about the reading order, nice editions to buy. Someone even designed a Green Gables Lego set concept. It just shows how deeply this story resonates still.
It's incredible. And that passion translates directly into tourism for Prince Edward Island, doesn't it? The island is Anne's home.
Undeniably. PEI has become this major literary landmark, almost entirely because of Anne.
Mm.
Green Gables Heritage Place in Cavendish is, I mean, it's a huge draw.
You hear about people making pilgrimages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those Reddit threads are full of people planning trips, sharing tips for visiting PEI for all things Anne. They talk about going to Green Gables, exploring Avonlea Village, though. But everyone seems to love seeing the red sand shores, the landscape she describes so vividly.
And there are other spots, too, beyond the main Green Gables site.
Oh, yeah. There's the Anne of Green Gables Museum at Silverbush. That was her aunt and uncle's place. The inspiration for Ingleside in the later books. People visit the real Lake of Shining Waters.
Which is actually Campbell Pond, right?
That's the one. And many go see the Anne Gilbert musical in Charlottetown, which is apparently quite charming. People also recommend L.M. Montgomery's birthplace site in New London, or places like Orwell Corner Historic Village, to get more of that historical feel.
So it's not just about the fictional locations.
No, and a lot of visitors say they feel a stronger connection to Montgomery herself when they visit those quieter spots. Maybe the site where her Cavendish home stood. Less crowded, more contemplative, maybe.
I can understand that. And the international appeal is just phenomenal. The Japanese connection, for example.
It's amazing. Thousands of Japanese tourists come specifically for Anne every year. It became incredibly popular there after World War II, apparently resonating with themes of resilience and finding beauty after hardship.
That makes sense. It's truly universal.
It is. And I mean, look at the PEI license plates. Home of Anne of Green Gables. The Royal Canadian Mint even issued a special commemorative $1 coin, a loonie, featuring both L.M. Montgomery and Anne Shirley.
That's fantastic. A really lovely tribute.
Isn't it? It just reinforces how significant she and Anne remain.
So wrapping things up, it's clear this isn't just a sweet story about a red-haired girl, Lucy Maud Montgomery's life, her creation. It's really a story about resilience, creativity,
And that powerful, undeniable link between a writer, her character, and a very specific, very special place, Prince Edward Island.
absolutely. The way Anne's story continues to charm people all over the world, decades later across different cultures, it really says something about the universal truths Montgomery tapped into.
Themes of belonging, friendship, imagination, finding joy in the everyday, that just don't get old.
They really don't. And if you ever get the chance to visit PEI, you won't just see beautiful scenery.
No, you'll feel it. You'll
Yeah.
feel that legacy. You can almost breathe in the world that inspired Avonlea.
It sounds magical, so we definitely encourage you, if you haven't lately, pick up Anne of Green Gables again, or maybe explore some of Montgomery's other books, and perhaps start dreaming about your own visit to this enchanting island.